Hello, today I'm going to go through the specimen paper 1 for the 2016 paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a question and then give you an explanation on how to answer the question, and then I want you to pause the video, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then press play to get the answer. Okay, let's start on question number 1. The question is, several items of data are input to a computer using direct entry methods. Write down the most appropriate input device to each input item of data. So some things to note, and I usually ask my students to underline the main key points of the questions, so when they're answering the question directly and not making any mistakes or writing something that the examiner might not be expecting. So here it's underline using direct data entry method, and also that it has to be the most appropriate input device. Now for some of these you might get more than one type of input device that could be used, so they're asking for the most appropriate. So 1A, data written in special ink at the bottom of bank checks. So you probably need to have an idea of what's on the bottom of a bank check. Question B, information on the label of a supermarket product. Question C, shaded in boxes on a student's examination answer sheet. And D is debit card details input at an ATM. So pause the video and take some time to answer the question. It's worth 4 marks, and they're only asking you to name the input device. Input method. So one mark for each answer. So take about a maximum of 6 minutes to answer this question. Okay, so here are the answers. So for question 1A, I've put a picture of the bottom of a bank check, and you can see that there's some characters on the bottom, some numbers and letters. Maybe not so clear if you're not watching this video on HD. So you've got some alphanumeric data on the bottom of the bank check, and what is used is an optical character reader. An optical character reader reads what's on the paper or the document and checks the characters against probably a computer program and records it onto the computer. So if it records the letters, it will store the letters or numbers directly onto the computer. Question B, information on the label of a supermarket product. Most supermarket, if not all supermarket products, have a barcode. So a barcode reader is used. So the question was asking for data entry method. So you can't put your answer down as a barcode. It has to be a barcode reader, because the method is how it's going into the computer. C is shaded in boxes on a student's examination sheet. So usually for multiple choice answers, the answer sheet will give you maybe A, B, C and D, and you mark usually with a HB pencil. So the optical mark reader will read what the mark is on the paper, and based on that save the results, and then it can automatically mark the question paper or the answer sheet. Then D is debit card details input in an ATM machine. So the debit card details are actually saved on the magnetic strip on the back or on the chip on the front. So you could put any of the two answers, such as magnetic strip reader or a chip reader, and that'll give you a mark for that one. So now we've got question 2 and question 3 together. So question 2 is circle 2 items which are used as output devices, and you've got an option of 8. So output devices, what might be coming or sending data, information, or anything out of a computer. And question 3 is trick, true or false, next to each of the following statements. Okay, you've got 4 statements, simple, true or false. So just take into account they're asking you to complete 2 circles at the top for 2 marks, and at the bottom you've got 4 statements and it's worth 2 marks. So the assumption is for each 2 correct answers you're getting 1 mark. So pause the video now. So we're at the answer for question 2 and question number 3. So the 2 output devices were laser printer, so any type of printer is an output device, and a multimedia projector. Question number 3. So you're taking true or false. Computer programs are examples of hardware. Nope, a program is a software, so it's false. A command line interface is a form of operating system. Yes, true. Now the operating systems that we use, such as Apple or Microsoft, they have something called graphical user interface, also known as GUI for GUI, and that makes it easier for us to be able to use our system. So in our operating system we've got icons for documents, so we can just double click it and open it. However, there are other operating systems that are for expert users. They work a lot quicker and they're just completely on command line interface, mainly for technicians, or you might see a school technician using that type of operating system. Now a tablet computer is larger than a desktop computer. So a tablet computer usually has a maximum of 9 inches for an iPad, and you got the new iPad which is around 11 inch I believe, but a normal desktop computer is obviously a lot bigger than that, so that's false. Then the last part is a compiler is an example of application software, which is false. So question number 4, a new computer system storing examination results out of 20 is to be tested using a range of test data. Take whether each of the marks is an example of normal data, abnormal data, or extreme data. So they've already told you what 3 types of testing are available, and then the question is out of 4 marks. They've already told you what the results are out of, so they're out of 20, so you can assume the lowest will be 1 and the highest will be 20. So pause the video and answer the question. So for the answers, you should have underlined that the examination results are out of 20, because that gives you an idea of what is normal, what is abnormal, and what is extreme. So normal is when the value is within the highest and the lowest. Abnormal would be if it's out of those ranges, and extreme will be if it's the lowest number or the highest number. So the first one, number 18, is normal because it falls between 0 and 20. 21 is abnormal because it doesn't fall within the range of 0 and 20. And then 20 is abnormal because 20 spelled as TWENTY is not a number, it's text. Then 20 is extreme because it's the highest number. 5. A desktop computer is already used in an office which does not have an internet connection. So they've emphasized that it does not have an internet connection. So question A, name 2 items of hardware which would enable the computer to be connected to a local area network. So you're naming the hardware that is specific in order to enable the computer to be connected to a local area network. Okay, not to the internet, but to a local area network. Question B, name 1 item of hardware which would enable the network to be connected to the internet, worth 1 mark. And C, take whether these statements are true or false. And you've got 3 statements there. So pause the video and answer the questions. So here are the answers. So it's specific to a desktop computer, and it's specific that it's not connected to the internet. So question A, so to hardware and local area network would be, you can say a hub, a switch, network interface card, or a bridge. So you've got 4 options there. If you said any of those 2, you'd get a mark. Then name one item of hardware which would enable the network to be connected to the internet. So you could have either said modem or a router. Now question C. True or false? Booking a theatre ticket is an example of online processing. Yes, it is, because the ticket is processed directly when you place the order. If it was batch processing, then you'd have to wait probably till the next day to get confirmation of the ticket, because they'll be processing all the tickets at the same time. But on online, they're processing each ticket as it's been ordered by the customer. So producing utility bills is an example of online processing. That's not the case, because the utility bill is usually produced once a month, and it's produced as a batch, and they're all printed at the same time for all the customers. So part 3, an internet browser is used by web designers to test web pages. That's true. It's quite an obvious answer. An internet browser uses an inference engine. That's false. An inference engine is used by expert system to make decisions. So internet browser doesn't need to make decisions, or isn't rule based like an expert system. So the answer is false. Question number 6. Describe 3 types of medical aid which can be produced using a 3D printer. Now, this is quite a difficult one if you haven't researched on medical uses for 3D printing, but I assume you have, because it's been on the syllabus for this year. It's not one I expected myself, but so 3 types of medical aid, and be specific to a 3D printer. Bear in mind, 3D printers don't just print in plastic or metal. So pause the video and take some time to answer the question. It's worth 3 marks. Take about 6 to 10 minutes to answer that question. Okay, so the answers I could think of is prosthetics. For example, to help a person to pick up or put down items, like a prosthetic hand, could be in plastic or metal. The other one is personalized surgical items. So could be, for example, if a surgeon is used to cutting a person's limb, but they find it difficult to cut certain areas, they could design their own scissors and then 3D print that. And then number 3, I've just read a few minutes ago that scientists are now able to 3D print artificial blood vessels using organic material. So that's possible, and in the near future they'll also be printing hearts that will actually be working. Well, they're printing hearts now, but it should be working and have blood flowing through it in the next 5 years or so. So you could have had any of these as your possible answers for 3 marks. Now question number 7 is asking, explain what is meant by GPS. Quite an easy answer if you've used GPS systems before. Take into account that your phone has GPS functionalities. So pause the video and answer the questions. Okay, as you can see on the answer here, I've underlined the word explain so that you remember that you need to explain. You're not just naming what is meant by GPS, you're explaining what is meant by GPS. And you probably need 3 explanations to get all 3 marks on there. So GPS stands for Global Positioning System, works out the location of a device using a number of satellites, usually 4 satellites to pinpoint a position on Earth. So the satellites are in space, and the distance from each satellite would indicate the location on Earth using simple calculations. So as I just mentioned, around 4 satellites would be needed. So if you mention all these points, you should get all 3 marks. Okay, so part B, give 2 examples of uses of GPS. It's quite an easy one, so pause the video. Okay, this is an easy question to answer because GPS has many uses. So the 2 that I could think of straight away was that it can be used by people running to calculate the distance that they have run, or to calculate the distance that they've got left to run. And the other point was that it can be used by aircrafts to track where they are on the map and to check how much distance they've covered, or how much distance that they've got left to reach their destination. So question 8, that's quite a big question. So compare and contrast the use of magnetic tapes with the removable magnetic tapes to make network backups, network server backups. So they've been specific to say removable magnetic devices. So you're going to compare, so talk about the advantages and the disadvantages, and you can give one of your opinions if you want. So pause the video. So what I did to help me answer the question was underline, compare and contrast. So I know exactly what I need to do, and then be specific to magnetic tapes with removable magnetic discs, and that is for server backups, so not for a home backup. I don't think you'll be using a magnetic disc to back up data at home. Anyway, for servers. So the initial cost of both types, so I'm comparing non-removable and removable backup devices as well. So the initial cost of both types of magnetic tapes seem expensive, but it's cheaper per megabyte compared to other storage mediums. So for example, even if a magnetic disk costs a few hundred, they save terabytes of information. So if you're doing a simple calculation, like say 5 terabytes divided by 200 euros, it still works out cheaper per megabyte compared to, let's say, a CD. So both can be stored in different locations other than the server. So if you are doing a backup on a removable magnetic disk, and then you're able to take it away from where this backup is from. So if the backup is of a school server, and there is a issue like a natural disaster, or there was an earthquake in the school, the removable magnetic disk wouldn't be affected because it's in a different location. Hopefully the same it's in a different location than where the earthquake was hit. So also, if there was like a issue due to terrorism in a building, so let's say you've got one of Microsoft's building, and they've done a backup on a removable tape. They take the tape to another location, and if all the data were deleted in the building, or the terrorists tried to take the data, it's in a different location, so they can delete or don't have to worry about the data in that location. Also, the amount of data that can be stored in the amount of space is greater than most of the other backup mediums, and also they have a very fast transfer rates. So it'll be a lot quicker to back up onto a magnetic tape than on CDs, for example. And you need quite a lot of CDs. Well, you can probably manage all the schools backup on one or two magnetic tapes. Also, it's quick to access lost data from a magnetic tape, and they can store large amounts of data on each tape. So if you mention all of these, then you've got a minimum of 5 marks. There are other possible answers, but these are what I've answered to get the 5 marks. So question number 9. Okay, it's also taking into account recent developments of ICT in society. So the question is, Johan is going on a holiday to a different country. He will need to take his passport. He has a new type of passport which has an RFID chip in it. he will be passing through automated passport control gates. I assume most people who have got their passports in the last couple of years will have used this if they've traveled recently. So the question is, describe what an RFID chip consists of. So pause the video, 2 marks. Okay, so a lot of things to take into account. So it's specific to RFID chip and it's specific to automated passport control gates. Now, if you haven't used automated passport control gates, or you haven't seen what it's like, it might be quite difficult to answer this question. So you have to describe what's on the RFID chip or what it consists of. So I assume the next question is going to ask about the control gates. So an RFID chip consists of circuits and just some wiring, as you can see on the picture below, and allows storage, very small amount of storage, and transmission of data. The circuit contains an aerial which allows the data to be received and transmitted. Okay, so it's quite a difficult question if you haven't read up enough on passport control. So, or the gate, describe how RFID will be used as he passes through passport control. Worth 3 marks. Try and describe it in a chronological order so it's easy for the examiner to understand what you're talking about. So for the answer, okay, so I wrote down the password there. I'm meant to write passport. So the passport would need to be placed against an RFID reader and would need to confirm identity using a biometric ID, such as a fingerprint or a face recognition. Now, if you've used, let's say, a bus card or a train card, and it's just the same as that. So you swipe your card against a reader when you're using your bus card. In the same way, you have to swipe your passport against a reader, and you also have to prove that it's you. So you have to have like a fingerprint, or they usually use face recognition software, and that's usually recorded from the picture that you gave them. Then the information on the RFID chip and the biometric ID will be checked against a database, and if it matches the database, then you're free to go through the gate. Okay, question number 10. You might need to change your display to HD to be able to see the spreadsheet. So the question is, a holiday company uses spreadsheets to organize the holidays they offer for scuba divers. In the first 2 columns, there is a list of holiday codes together with the accommodation offered. Also in the spreadsheet, there are formulae to manipulate the data stored elsewhere in the spreadsheet. There is also space to calculate the number of weeks and days each type of holiday has been booked for. Now, I see a lot of students making the mistake of not going through the spreadsheet properly, and then when they answer the question, they don't usually answer it properly or don't refer to the correct cells because they've not taken time to read the spreadsheet. So just take a minute or two to read the spreadsheet. So you've got types of holiday. You got VLOOKUP on the D column and SUMIF in the F column. Then below you've got the table with people's name, the definition code or the type, and the number of days they're going on holiday for. So moving on to the question. So what I've done here is I've underlined that it's a holiday company and that the first 2 columns has a list of holiday codes with the accommodation offered, and they've also mentioned that the data is stored elsewhere, and we can see from the VLOOKUP that that's the case, but elsewhere on the same spreadsheet, not in a separate spreadsheet. Also, they said that there's ways to calculate the number of days of weeks and days each type of holidays, so they might be asking us about that later on. So question A is asking, explain what the formula in cell D2 does. So do not refer to column headings. So cell D2, if you just skip back a second, it's a VLOOKUP. So take 4 or 5 minutes to look at that and explain what it does. So in cell D2, you've got a VLOOKUP formula, which is checking the values in cell E2 and then cross-referencing it with the values in the range of A2 to B8 and returning the values back from the second column. So just to simplify that, it reads the values in cell E2, compares it with the values in the table A2 to B8. It then finds the matching value. So whatever comes up on E2, it will try and find that value in the first column. So in the between A2 and B3 on the A column. And when it finds the data, it brings back the information from, so here you got, it brings back the information from the second column of the range that is selected. So in this case, it brings back the type of holiday package based on the definition code. It's not very easy to explain without actually doing it on the screen, but just take a minute to make sense of it. So question B is asking, what type of holiday would you expect to see in D5? It's only worth 1 mark, but might take you a couple of minutes to get to that. So the answer is flights only. Now, how do I get to that? If you look at the cell D5, the formula is VLOOKUP, in the brackets you've got E5, and then you've got a range A2 to B2, and then information to be returned from column 2. So the value in E5 is FO, and you can see FO in cell A. Here is FO, and if you look back at the table, FO, then you look at the second column, because you've got 2 in the end of the formula, so it's going to the second column to bring back the information, and is flights only. Okay, so again, the formula is looking for the value in E5, and the value in E5 is FO, and from the table on the left, FO relates to flights only. Question C is asking, explain what the formula in cell F2 does. Now don't refer to column headings. So for the answer, the formula in F2 is a sum-if formula. So the formula adds up the values inside the bracket if a criteria is met. So it goes through the cells B12 to B22 and adds up the values in C12 to C22 with the value in the first set of cells, which is B12 to B22, is equal to the value of whatever is in E2. So, for example, you've got some B12 to B22, so add up whatever is in those cells if they are the same as E2. So E2 is saying that the booked code is BB, so whatever is BB in the B column, then find the value on B, under those cells, that is BB, and then everywhere that it shows BB on the B column, then on the C column add up those values. The syntax for the SUMIF formula is equals SUMIF, the range that you want to check, the criteria that you want to check against, and then the range to add up the values from. So, just to explain it a little bit clearer, it's equals SUMIF, go through B12 to B22, check for the value in E2, which is BB, and then if that shows up anywhere in that column, then from those rows add up the values from C12 to C22. Now let's go through question D, E, F together. So what value would you expect to see in F5, and what formula would you expect to see in G2? And finally, what formula would you expect to see in H2? So you might have to go back to see that and then answer the question, and then we'll get to the answers. So pause the video. Okay, so what value would you expect in F5? Now in here I've written equals SUMIF B12 to B22, and then written E2 there. It should be E5. Okay, and the criteria in E5 is FO. So wherever it shows FO on the type on the B column, then add up only those values from number of days. So the answer, so we've got FO in B16 and FO in B22. So 14 at 7, so the answer will be 21. Now on question E, what formula would you expect in cell G2? So we're looking at cell G2, so to work out the weeks. So if you look at this here, you've got the number of days that you're getting back in the F column. So depending on what you get there, you would divide that by 7, because 7 days in a week. So, and then you'll want it as a full number. So the formula would be integer, and in the brackets you'll put your formula. So int open bracket F12 divided by 7 number of days, and then close your bracket, and you'll get 1 mark for the actual formula for int, and then 1 mark for F12 divided by 7. Question F, what formula would you expect to see in H2? So H2 is days. So what formula would you expect in H2? So it would be F2, so the value that you get, take away G2 times it by 7, because you've divided it previously, so you're timesing it again to get the number of days. Okay. G, take 3 appropriate features of spreadsheet software which would make it suitable for creating and using computer models. So just for creating and using computer models. So pause the video and ask the question. Okay, for the answers. What if formula? So when you have a condition that would change the result in a computer model, so the computer model is simulating what might happen. So the what ifs, then queries won't be used. You'll use if statements instead. Now automatic recalculation. So if you've got, for example, an invoice, and then you've got someone changes the quantity of an item, then it should automatically recalculate the total. Internet browsing doesn't really make sense. And animation. So animation, for example, when you're using a computer model to simulate weather forecasting, then you'll need that for creating the visual display of the weather changes. So you've got your 3 points there. Now, question number 11. This has come up quite a lot of times in the past papers. So describe the differences between RAM and ROM, and it's worth 4 marks. So you can give an explanation of RAM and ROM as well, so the examiner knows that you're aware of what you're talking about, and then describe the differences between the two. Okay, so ROM stands for read-only memory. So read-only can't be changed once it's written. RAM is random access memory, and that can be changed, so it's read and write. So ROM holds information that can be changed, so that cannot be changed, such as startup programs, the BIOS, and program instructions. Things that can't be changed. The RAM holds information and work that's been done by a user. So for example, if you are working on Microsoft Word, while you're working on Microsoft Word, that information is being held on the RAM, and it's constantly reading and writing on the RAM. And also any application that you open on your computer are being held in the RAM temporarily. So when you switch off your computer, that won't be there anymore. Okay, question number 12. Now this is another simple question. So Paul employs Jane, a system analyst, to create a new database system for his supermarket business. He stocks a selection of foods. So Paul needs to know quickly when his stock is low so that he can send for more products. He needs to record each product so that it is unique. He also needs to know the date that each product was last ordered. So question A is asking, complete the data dictionary table giving the field names which would be used in the database, and describe the most suitable validation check which would need to be carried out on each field. Do not use spaces in the field names. Okay, so be clear that you should not use spaces in the field names. There are other ways of replacing spaces. You need to think of that yourself. So it's worth 6 marks for 6 spaces. So pause the video and take between 6 to 10 minutes to answer that and think about it properly. Okay, there's a lot of information to start off with. So I've underlined a certain words. So new database, and it's for a supermarket. Also that he needs to know quickly when his stock level is low, so maybe an auto indication, and also the date needs to be entered for when the product was last ordered. Okay, and also in the question I've underlined the most suitable validation check. There may be more than one type of validation check, but what is most suitable, and don't use any spaces. So what I've done here is I've put product name, and the product name could be alphanumeric, so I've left that as none, so the validation check that they've already had on the question paper. I said the reorder level, okay, and I've got that from knowing that he needs to know when the stock level is low, and that would be a range check, so depending on what the reorder level is. So if the reorder level is, let's see, as an example, 5, so the range check will check that it's hit the number 5 and that it doesn't go below 5. Then the barcode, okay, so each time a product the barcode will store the information, and each time the product leaves the store, it can be done through the barcode, and that would be a digit checked. And the question paper had last order date on there already, and that would be a format check, so to check that it is a date. Now question B, name and describe 2 methods of verification. So they just want you to name it, you don't have to give an explanation there, and the explanation goes into the description. So 2 types of verification methods. So stop the video. Okay, so there's 2 types of verifying that the data has been entered into the computer correctly. One is visual, so checking with your eyes and are able to see that the data is correct. So if you're at the supermarket and you've entered the name of the product that needs to go on the receipt. You'll just check the product and you'll check the computer to check that you've entered it correctly. The other one is multiple data entry. A lot of times when you make new accounts online, they might ask you to enter your password 2 times in 2 different boxes. So it will check that the first box and the information on the first box and the information on the second box is exactly the same, so that to make sure that you haven't made any mistakes. And if you have made any mistakes and the information is not the same, it will tell you to re-enter the information. Okay, so the system lifecycle here. After the system is developed, it will be implemented, meaning it will be put into the business. Describe 3 methods by which a new system can be implemented. So you're not looking at advantages or disadvantages, you're just describing the method. So mention the method and what the method does. So pause the video and answer the question. So there's 4 possible answers. I've picked 3. So the first one is direct changeover. That's when you are replacing the old system with the new system directly. Second point is parallel running. So parallel, so imagine two lines running parallel. So the old system and the new system will be working at the same time. And then you've got phased implementation. So phased, so you're phasing in a system part by part. So you enter the first part of the system into the business. If that works, you carry on with the second one, and so on. Question 13. Doctors often use expert system to diagnose illnesses of patients. Describe how an expert system diagnoses illnesses. Now, be specific to mention each thing in a chronological order so the examiner understands exactly what you're talking about. So take the space on the left of the paper to think about how you might order your answer and then answer it. It's worth 4 marks, but in a question like this, you should take probably about 10 minutes to structure your answer and answer the question properly. So pause the video and answer the question. Okay, so here's my answer. Be specific that it's for doctors. So data is entered into this expert system by a doctor, usually using a keyboard, or in more advanced system, just a touch screen. So it'll display questions to the doctor. Now these questions might need just a few words, or sometimes they give you a set of options that you can just click on. Then when the information goes into the system, an inference engine will compare the data that the doctors entered against the data on their knowledge base, or on the database of the expert system. It uses a rule base to filter the results. So based on the information that they put in, it'll filter down the results, and then when it finds a match or a solution, then the expert system will display the results or possible illnesses onto the doctor's screen. Question B, give 2 other uses of expert systems. So you don't have to explain them, just give the uses of expert systems. Okay, there's a lot of possible answers for this one. Now I've picked 2. One is classification of plants, and the other is chess game. So with the classification of plants, let's say for example you discover, or you think you've discovered a new plant, and you want to see if it is new or it already exists, or you want to see which category it falls into. You'll open up a expert system. It'll have some questions already there for you. For example, how many leaves does it have, what color is it. You'll enter those information in, and then in the end it'll tell you what type of plant it is, or if it doesn't have it on the database, it might say you've just discovered a new plant. And with chess game, so chess is a game that has numerous possibilities, and what the expert system does is counts all the possible moves that you can make, and it does it very quickly because it can calculate all the moves a lot quicker than a normal person can, and it'll give you possible moves that you can make. Okay, question 14. A company uses robots to manufacture cars. Now this type of question comes up a lot, and it's come up a lot in past exam papers, so I assume a similar question will come up in terms of manufacturing. So take 3 advantages for the company of using robots rather than humans to manufacture cars. What I want you to do in a question like this is read all the possible answers and then take the advantage rather than just taking them as you go along. So pause the video. The correct answers I've ticked here is robots produce the same standard every time. So human beings, when they can't replicate the exact same task all the time due to many different factors. And the other one is that robots are more accurate. So they're more accurate than human beings. Human beings are prone to making inaccuracies due to reasons like tiredness or being distracted. And also that robots don't take breaks, okay, which is great for the company. So human beings take breaks and this reduces productivity and that can cost the company as well. So there's no production during human breaks, and if robots are not taking breaks, that's increasing productivity straight away. Okay, another big question. A school has a cabled LAN, so local area network. The head teacher of the school wants to replace it with a WLAN, which is a wireless LAN. Explain the differences between a cabled LAN and a WLAN, giving 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of having a WLAN. So we've already given indication of how to answer the question. It's worth 5 marks. So pause the video, answer the question. Okay, here are the possibilities. So LAN is a wired network whilst WLAN is wireless. So advantages for WLAN. In WLAN, cables are not needed, so it's cheaper to set up because you don't have to buy so many cables. And also it requires less effort if you want to add a new device. In a wired LAN, you'd have to find a spot or add a new wire and then add the device. So it's WLAN, you don't need to do that. Also, because no cables are required, you can put your device anywhere in the room. It doesn't need to be near a cable or near a socket. You can move around the room as well. The disadvantage is in a wireless network, the wireless signal doesn't reach very far, and it has to be near where the router is. Okay, while if it's cable, you can cable the network anywhere in the building. Also, in wireless LAN, data is transmitted at a slower rate than a cable network. Okay, the cable network, data always flows a lot quicker. And also, the signal strength in a wireless connection gets weaker the further you go. So, so you still need to be within a close proximity of the router. And also, wireless networks can be hacked a lot easier from people who are not from the company than wired LAN. Okay, 16A is asking, describe the differences between physical safety and e-safety when using computers. So physical safeties when using computers, not physical safety of a human being or yourself, although it does relate to human beings. So the physical safety and e-safety when using computers. Now I'm going to give you a clue here. Physical safety is safety in the room and e-safety is to do with online safety. So pause the video, answer the question. So 16A, I put in 16B there as well. I forgot to put just the question in before. Anyway, 16A, describe the differences between physical safety and e-safety. So physical safety refers to preventing accidents in real life that are related to computers. For example, tripping over wires or computers overheating if you don't have enough, we don't have the right temperature in the room. And e-safety refers to avoiding issues that might happen due to the use of the internet. So, for example, not giving out personal information online or not meeting up with people in real life as a result of meeting with them online. So, question B is describe 3 measures which should be taken in order to maintain e-safety. So, don't give out personal information on an online profile. as it might lead to unwanted contact from people you don't know. And if you do give personal information, it should be just to people that you do know yourself. Second point is, don't arrange to meet anyone alone in real life if you've only met them online. You should go with a responsible adult and meet them in a public place. And point 3 is, don't use real names when playing online games to avoid angry responses. And there's many examples of when people have got angry because they've lost a game to somebody, and they've tried to track that person down. Okay, so there are many microprocessor control devices in the modern home. Discuss the effects of these on people's lifestyles. Now that wasn't so present in the last version of the syllabus, but it is now on this one. So pause the video and answer the question. It's about 6 marks, so you need to write quite a lot, or make at least 6 points when you're discussing it. Okay, so some of the points that I've come up with. So microprocessor control devices are any devices that have a logic chip that controls how the device works. So for example, a cleaning robot or a